Shalom to the elect. Got to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone who rule well, who teach well, and a sincere salutation to all the occupants pushing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, waking up the hopeful elect. Coming into another lesson, the Lord's willing to be edifying, and shalom to the Akwaf who are listening and learning. Going in again on Esau Edom because their opioid crisis, their opioid epidemic is steady rising. Their ODing rate is steady rising. Their suicide rate is steady climbing. So, and we're going to stay going in on Esau Edom because what does the Lord say in Deuteronomy 30:7? All these curses shall fall upon our enemies. So the title of this lesson is Esau Edom, the so-called white race, is being cursed by the curses that was put on Esau Edom. Okay? They are under these curses heavy, man. So, I'm going to play this clip.
Opioid epidemic is ravaging parts of this country. President Trump has declared it a public health emergency. Last year, overdoses killed some 64,000 people. It's being compared to the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s and 90s. The face of the opioid epidemic has been mostly white, and that's because we have seen a massive increase in drug overdoses among young white adults, often in rural areas. But what's been happening in Black and Latino communities? For answers, we called up Dr. Andrew Kolodny. He's co-director of the Opioid Policy Research Collaborative at Brandeis. Dr. Kolodny, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So by the numbers, white communities do seem to be suffering the most from this epidemic or impacted the most. How is opioid addiction affecting Black and Latino communities?
So our new opioid addiction epidemic is sparing African American and Latino communities. And it's striking when you look at the data, whether you're looking at overdose deaths or emergency room visits for opioid use problems or treatment admissions for opioid addiction. It's very clear that this epidemic is overwhelmingly white, and it begs the question, why? I can share with you a theory, and it is a theory that's based on evidence. Something that we do know is that doctors prescribe narcotics more cautiously to their non-white patients. It would seem that if the patient is Black, the doctor is more concerned about the patient becoming addicted, or maybe they're more concerned about the patient selling their pills, or maybe they are less concerned about pain in that population. But the Black patient is less likely to be prescribed narcotics and therefore less likely to wind up becoming addicted to the medication. So what I believe is happening is that racial stereotyping is having a protective effect on non-white populations.
Are doctors acknowledging that they're less likely to prescribe narcotics, pain medication to Black and Latino patients?
I don't think they're aware of it. I think this happens on an unconscious level.
This isn't, of course, the first time that the U.S. has faced a drug epidemic. There's crack cocaine in the 80s and 90s. That was often affecting Black communities. Is the response to this crisis different?
Very different.
Why?
What we saw from policymakers, what we got from policymakers was a message that we could potentially arrest our way out of the problem. What we got was a war on drugs and a crackdown on crime. What we're seeing now is a very different response now that we've got an addiction epidemic that's disproportionately white. What we're hearing from policymakers, even conservative Republican politicians, when they talk about the opioid crisis, many begin by saying we can't arrest our way out of this. We have to see that people who are addicted can access effective treatment. We didn't hear that during the crack cocaine epidemic. It's good that we're hearing it now. It's too bad we didn't hear it then.
President Trump, interestingly, has declared this crisis a public health emergency, but not a national emergency. If it was a national emergency, that would allow federal funding, even access to FEMA funds, to go toward treating it. Does this fall short, do you think, of a national emergency? What's the difference?
Well, I don't know that the problem is so much.
Now let me say this. The Lord told Rebecca that she had 2 sons, 2 nations, 2 manners of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other. So she asked him, why is this not happening to the so-called blacks and Hispanics? Because we are stronger. Okay? We are built to go through oppression, man. The Lord built it this way. He built us this way, man. So none of this is affecting the so-called Negroes, the so-called Hispanics, and the so-called Native Americans, man. Okay? This is the curse of the Edomites. We done went through our curse. The Lord say, our iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. So this ain't for us, man. Now this is Isaiah chapter 41 in verse 14. Fear not, thy worm Jacob. He said, thy worm Jacob, because we the lowest of the low, man. So we know how to struggle. We know how to go through things. Fear not, thy worm Jacob. It say, fear not, thy worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel. I will help thee, saith the Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. So he told us to fear not, man. Okay? This ain't for us, man. This for these Edomites. Okay? That's why they going through it. This is for them.
Much the type of national emergency or public health emergency that was designated. My concern is that what we haven't received from the Trump administration is a plan for addressing the problem or a request from Congress for funding.
What would a solution, what would a new system look like?
One of the first things that we have to do is we have to prevent more people from becoming addicted to opioids. And that's
that
not
ain't finna
lecturing
happen.
to kids don't do drugs. More than anything else, that's about promoting much more cautious prescribing so that we don't directly addict patients and so that people don't indirectly become addicted because we've stocked everybody's home with a highly addictive drug. But we also have to recognize now that the genie is out of the bottle. Millions of Americans are suffering from opioid addiction. We have to see that they can access the most effective treatments very easily. If you're opioid addicted, when you wake up in the morning, you're going to need to use an opioid pretty quickly or you're going to be feeling very sick. We want that individual to be able to access effective outpatient treatment more easily than they can access pain pills, heroin, or fentanyl. If that person wakes up and they've got $20 in their pocket and they know where to go get heroin, that is what they're going to do. We want that person to be able to walk into a treatment center regardless of their ability to pay for their care and to be started on treatment, outpatient treatment, that same day.
Dr. Andrew Kolodny is co-director of the Opioid Policy Research Collaborative.
Now you see, they want about Esau Edom getting help, man, but they weren't caring about Jake, man. When Jake was out here drugged out, doped out, okay? They ain't care about Jake, man. But they so worried about these Edomites, man. Hey, because their kingdom is falling, man. Their kingdom is crumbling.
We begin
like cornbread,
with an alarming
man.
story about
Okay?
rising death
Like
rates
cake.
among white adults in America. WSJ's special writer Betsy McKay joins us now to discuss. Thanks for being here, Betsy.
Thanks for having me.
As you point out in your piece, this trend is shocking for an economically advanced country like the United States. What is driving the uptick in deaths?
Well, this is a really interesting study, and it follows on some work done about a year and a half ago by the same two economists at Princeton, which found that mortality was rising among middle-aged Americans. So then they set out to figure out a couple of things. One, how widespread was that problem? And secondly, what might be driving it? So what they found in their new paper is that mortality is rising not just for middle-aged Americans, but for Americans between 25 and 64
She talking about white Americans.
years of age. And what's
You
driving
see the title
that
on the screen?
really is our rises in mortality in people who have a high school education or less, so working class Americans. For people with a college degree, mortality is still declining. So to have, mortality rise in a developed nation is very, very unusual. And our mortality rates have been declining for decades.
Right.
They posit a hypothesis which is really interesting. They examined a ton of data, economic data, health data, from national sources, and what they believe is going on is that the types of jobs available to working class Americans have changed since the 70s. They're less stable, more minimum wage jobs, less opportunity for advancement, and at the same time, there are a lot of social trends: decline in marriage, more cohabitation, more children born out of wedlock, more social isolation. Families aren't stable.
Right, and so you touched on education and also the workforce. These deaths of despair, especially with the opioid crisis we've seen in America, they believe are leading more white adults to die younger. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they do point out that these trends were, underway before the opioid epidemic took off. I mean, opioids were really introduced in the 90s, and the epidemic has kind of taken off in the 2000s, whereas changes were starting to occur, before the mid 90s. But the opioid epidemic has definitely accelerated it. And then on top of that, you have alcohol-related liver diseases, and you have suicide. Suicide and opioids are often tied. It's hard to tell sometimes whether a drug overdose was intentional or accidental.
Right. Well, it's also interesting because these studies always look at race. And here the researchers found that blacks and Hispanics face many of the same income struggles as the white working
love
class.
talking about Jake.
Yet they've experienced a decline in mortality rates. So how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, well, so that's the puzzle for everyone. What they say is that for whites, for working class whites, times were better earlier. So in other words, there was an expectation, more of an expectation of life improving.
The
Whereas
kingdom
for
is
blacks
falling.
and Hispanics, they've been moving up.
Yes, we is.
Some parts of those populations, and there wasn't the they believe there just wasn't the expectation that with every generation you're going to live better than your parents. They also, think what needs to be explored is they posit the idea that anti-poverty programs have been of more benefit to blacks, whereas whites might not have been able to benefit from them. Their salaries might have been high enough so that they don't qualify.
Last but not least, one of the biggest stories
You
today
always want
is
to
the
make up
healthcare
some
vote.
excuse, man.
We could be seeing some major changes for federal entitlement programs like Medicaid. Do you foresee those changes impacting mortality rates? Would that play a role in these trends?
Well, it really remains to see exactly what they do with the healthcare bill. But certainly, there are those estimates that millions of people could lose coverage, or millions could qualify for coverage that is not as good as what they have now. A lot will depend on what happens with Medicaid, but potentially, yes, you could have a lot of people, including these people, working class whites, as well as blacks and Hispanics, losing coverage if the vote goes that way.
All right, thank you, Betsy, for joining us.
There you go, man. Hey, they falling, man. Their kingdom is crumbling, man. And there's nothing they could do about it. Their kingdom is crumbling, okay? It's going down, man. Thus saith Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah. Now, we get a couple of these precepts. Cause these Edomites is falling, man. Now this is Jeremiah chapter 50, chapter 49, verse 10. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places. He shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled. Okay? All his generation, they are dying. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not. Okay? The Lord is bringing them down to the dirt, man. Okay? He's bringing them down, man. The curses is upon these Edomites, man. Okay? The curses is on these Edomites, man. And it's nothing but destruction. This is Job chapter 27, verse 13. This is the portion of the wicked. This is the portion of a wicked man with God, and the heritage of oppressors, which they shall receive of the Almighty. Okay? If his children be multiplied, it is for the sword, and his offspring shall not be satisfied with bread. They're dying, man. Okay? They ain't selling. Hey, they is being destroyed, man. The Lord is jacking them up, man, for what they did to us. Okay? This is Job 24, verse 18. He is swift as the waters. Their portion is cursed in the earth. He beholdeth not the way of the vineyard. He don't understand, hey, what's going on, man? They think Trump telling the people they finna get better, man. He gonna make America great again. No, man. Their vineyard is being destroyed, man. They are coming down to the ground. Their grapes is drying up, man. Okay? Everything about these Edomites is drying up, man. Everything.
An expectation, more of an expectation of life improving. Whereas for Blacks and Hispanics, they've been moving up. Certainly, some parts of those populations, and there wasn't the they believe there just wasn't the expectation that with every generation.
You see? And that's the spirit that it went back to that, man. These Edomites, man, hey, they know, man, we the stronger, man. They are the weaker, okay? They are weak, man. They are really weak, man. And it's time for them to fall, man. They've been living deliciously, man, okay, for hundreds and hundreds of years, man. But it's time to bring all that to a close, man. The Lord say, rejoice and be glad, O daughter Edom. So they have been rejoicing, man. They've been rejoicing for a long period of time. Okay? A long time. And this is another clip. Because these Edomites is letting you know what's going on, man.
Meanwhile, you need to know this. Presidential candidates from both parties have been engaged for months in a raging debate on how to deal with immigrants in the United States. Recently, the focus of that debate has also turned to include Syrian refugees. And that debate has been especially bitter as Republican candidates have stoked fears of Islamic extremist terrorists entering the United States disguised as refugees. There's a much more direct reason why the right is so staunchly anti-immigrant, and why Donald Trump has gathered more support with his fascist and nativist rhetoric than any other Republican candidate has managed so far. And last night, Bill O'Reilly spelled out exactly what the right's biggest fear is and what the true agenda behind the right's anti-immigration policy is. Check it out. The radical left immigration vision would profoundly change all of America's traditions, all of them. And that's what the left wants, because that ideology sees the American Judeo-Christian tradition as oppressive, exploitative, and a white privilege legacy. Thus, the uber left wants traditional America wiped off the face of the earth. That's what's truly going on. And if Americans don't wise up quickly, the left-wing vision of immigration may very well become a reality.
It's gonna come reality, man.
The biggest fear is that traditional America gets wiped off the face of the earth.
They getting wiped off, and you can see it every day.
Traditional America, they mean exactly what he just said. They want a Judeo-Christian nation. They want a nation where white men still have the power, and they're absolutely terrified that their white male privilege might be threatened. The phrase traditional America is nothing but a dog whistle. What they really mean is clear in the extremist reactionary policies that they propose. They want to make Christianity an official state religion. They want to take away a women's constitutional right to an abortion. They want to build a wall to keep out immigrants. Are we East Berlin? And they want to label all the Muslims who are already in this country. They want to make sure that white men can own as many guns as they want, but the minorities and young people can't vote. And every Republican politician fights tooth and nail to prove that they can carry out all of those policies in the most radical and extreme ways. So, did Bill O'Reilly just reveal the Republicans' biggest fear, that white rule in America might end someday?
It's gonna end. It's ending now. Bring this precept out. This is Job chapter 21 and verse 20. His eyes shall see his destruction, and he shall drink of the wrath of the Almighty. Okay? For what pleasure have he in his house after him, when the number of his months is cut off in the midst? Hey, so the Lord is cutting them off, man. He's cutting these Edomites down, man. They are being destroyed, man. Okay? At an alarming rate, man.
Joining me for tonight's Big Picture Rumble are Charles Sauer, economist and policy specialist, president of the Market Institute, Sam Sachs, co-founder of the District Sentinel, and Horace Cooper, attorney and senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. So, guys, welcome. Good to see you all again. So, did Bill O'Reilly just reveal the Republicans' biggest fear? No more white men, men running.
He revealed that there's a generational gap in the Republican Party. My hair's changed as the Republican Party's changed.
Okay.
We see the old guard, Bill O'Reilly, that still cling to this over-idealized view of their childhood, where America was Leave It to Beaver, which it wasn't, but they've idolized that, and it's there. We have my generation, who's a different generation, where the sons and daughters of hippies and Vietnam vets who view immigration, who view the traditional family as different. I grew up in a divorced household. I was in college with two homosexual guys who treated me like their adopted son. Traditional families have never been traditional, but Bill O'Reilly's getting up there to a point where he looks back on his childhood and thinks that was Leave It to Beaver and not what he really went through.
I think that's actually a really accurate analysis.
Yeah, and if I could speak for the radical left that Bill O'Reilly was talking about there, I think he's absolutely right. I think that the left has a history of tearing down American traditions, and they should wear it as a badge of honor. Traditions of racism that existed long ago in this country, economic exploitation, and the project of progressivism is to continue making things better and more equal, making society, granting more civil rights to people as we move forward. So yeah, the radical left in this country, there are still institutions that need to be reformed in a way that makes society equal and better.
Those institutions have dropped down because of the rise of capitalism. Nothing to do with the radical left tearing them down. I mean, that's what Bill O'Reilly
this was organized labor. People marching for a 5-day work week. People marching against child labor. People marching and disrupting for civil rights.
Organized labor
this was
protects
the
the
left
cops.
shooting out in the streets and doing
Organized
these
labor
things,
protects
not
the cops
capitalism.
that are out shooting black people right now. Organized labor protects teachers that are molesting kids. Organized labor isn't what has broken down the social
That has nothing
guidelines
to do
in
with what we're
America.
talking about here. There might be a problem with police unions and police, but that's a completely separate issue of what we're getting here and how we got to where we were.
Two things. One, Bill O'Reilly is a self-identified independent. He is not a Republican. He's not the spokesman for the Republican Party. Whatever one thinks about what he was describing, those are not the talking points for the Republican Party. That has not been.
Those are the talking points I'm hearing from the Republican candidates. Have you listened to Donald Trump's speech recently?
Donald Trump is a person running for president. He is not the Republican. He is not
the leading Republican right now.
He is not the exemplar of the Republican.
Salakia. Had to pause it for a second. Got these trick-or-treaters knocking on my door, man. Damn demonic demons, man. Running around here looking for candy, man. But finish playing this.
Point is, you mentioned the 40-hour work week, the minimum wage, and all these other things. The history shows you progressives were doing this for white supremacy. That was the primary purpose. And by the way, today, many of these same progressive policies divide us.
Marching in civil rights for white supremacy as well.
They divide us on the basis of race. They divide us on the basis of income. They divide us. Your progressive policies aren't about that. Now, Bill O'Reilly.
The Lord say there's supposed to be division.
Bill O'Reilly doesn't explain why there was a bipartisan vote in the House of Representatives, a supermajority to support restrictions on Syria. That meant Democrats and Republicans. That meant people who were liberal.
It's because of demagogues like the guys on your side who are going out. Keep in mind, it takes a couple of years for a refugee to go through the process of being accepted into the United States. We've taken 7
White
million refugees
privilege
now over the
legacy.
last 20 years. None has ever killed anybody.
Bill O'Reilly feels Bill O'Reilly feels the end of white America, and it's ending, man.
In the House of Representatives,
Their time is over, man.
for this, and she supports this.
It was a disappointing vote. I'm not.
The truth of the matter
It was because guys like you are ginning up fear. This is demagoguery, Horace.
I don't gin up fear for her. She's a representative of her constituency, and she recognizes this
The
problem.
political
Edomites
perspective
trying
you are
to find a
promoting
way,
and
man.
representing
They
is
falling,
based in
man.
fear. It's all about, that's what Bill O'Reilly
These
is
damn
about.
demons, man. They are being destroyed, man.
Wait. She's not white. She's not
But she
male,
has political implications at home.
and she understands the seriousness of the argument, and she doesn't dismiss them because of demagogic claims that you guys make that everything's about racism. It's not about
if
that.
she's afraid of any, first of all, again,
You got Jake on here
and
cutting
so
them up,
good at
man.
Taking the one exception. That
They trying to
proves
find
the
some
rule.
kind of way to come
But
back.
nonetheless, any
Supermajority.
Democrat who's afraid on this issue is afraid of the white male power structure that is running the media empires in the United States and the Republican Party that are terrifying people with lies.
The way the democratic process works, you stand up, you make your argument, someone else makes their arguments, and we let the marketplace of ideas decide.
No, we
and
let-
when you lose
we let the
to a
billionaires decide.
supermajority vote, it's a sign your argument is weak. It's not a sign of some white supremacy.
There was not even a majority in the Senate that could overrule a veto.
This hasn't been brought up yet. It's about to come up
We're
either a
thinking
week
of
or
two different pieces of legislation.
Yeah. It's about the Syrian refugee legislation to require background information.
More of
for
tonight's
those
Big
people.
Picture Rumble right after the break. Meanwhile, you need...
There you go, man. Okay? Precept. This is Job chapter 18, because, man, Esau finished, man. Job chapter 18 and verse 14. His confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle. And this is what you see right here, man. And it shall bring him to the king of terrors. Okay? Who the king of terrors, man? Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Okay? Reading on. His remembrance, this is verse 17. His remembrance shall perish from the earth, and he shall have no name in the streets. He shall be driven from light into darkness, as they was before when they was in the Caucasus Mountain, okay? When they was in Mount Seir and in Georgia, Russia, man, okay? When they was in Petra and the Caucasus Mountain, man. Read this again. He shall be driven from light into darkness and chased out of the world. He shall neither have son nor nephew among his people, nor any remaining in his dwellings, man. Okay? He is about to be destroyed, man. This is Job chapter 24, verse 24. They are exalted for a little while. For a little while they are exalted, but are gone and brought low. Who's the lowest? The scripture tell you that they are the bases of men. But the Lord say, we the lowest right now. That's why I read to you that verse in Isaiah 41. Fear not, thy worm Jacob. Okay, we the lowest right now. Read this again, Job 24 and 24. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all others. All other what? All other kingdoms that fail, man. The same way the other kingdoms have failed. Okay, the Roman Empire, the Babylon Empire, the Assyrian Empire, the Greek Empire. Okay, read this again. But are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other. Okay, all other kingdoms. And cut off as the tops of the ears of corn. They brought low, man. They're going to be brought low. They are done, man. Esau, Edom, The so-called white man is finished, man. This is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 22. Verse 21. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. That's what the Lord said. They got to be taken out, man, because they don't do nothing but destroy, man. Like Revelation 11:18 said, he will destroy them who destroy the earth. And who's destroying the earth, man? Esau, the so-called white man. Who controls the entire earth, man? The so-called white man. Starting with the head family, the Rothschilds. Verse 22. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant, and son and nephew, saith the Lord Yahweh. Hey, so they're finished, man. They are done. So with that, Lord's witness for edifying, I want to say our praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Rakah, Kodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well, and a sincere salutation to all the Ark and pushing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, waking up the hopeful elect. And shalom to the Akwaf who are listening and learning. Shalom.